With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, President of the High Council of Judiciary, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has stressed that the in-depth review of the national legal system aims to enshrine the rights and liberties of citizens and strengthen the achievements of human rights. Participants to the Fourth Committee of the UN Assembly have reiterated the need to allow the Sahrawi people to exercise their inalienable right to self-determination. Scores of Palestinian prisoners have been released as part of the first stage of the peace plan aimed at ending the Israeli attacks on Gaza ahead of the peace summit held today in Egypt. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm your host, Miriam Bershi. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has offered his condolences to the Emir of the sister state of Qatar, His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, following the death of 3 diplomats and members of the Emiri Diwan in the road accident in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. In his message, President Tebboune expressed his deep feelings of compassion and solidarity to the Emir of Qatar, praying Almighty Allah to grant the deceased His holy mercy and their families patience and comfort, while wishing a speedy recovery to the injured. The President of the Republic, President of the High Council of the Judiciary, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has stressed that the in-depth review of the national legal systems aims to enshrine the rights of and freedoms and liberties of citizens and strengthen the achievements of human rights. Presiding over the opening of the new judicial year 2025 to 2026, the President said he had initiated the new legal text and began the in-depth review of all the laws in accordance with the commitment he made to moralize public life and combat abuses and corruption. In this regard, he emphasized that the majority of these new legal laws aims to directly serve citizens in matters of rights and liberties, to adapt institutions accordingly, and to strengthen the inseparable human rights gains. He insisted that given the speed at which our country is developing economically, particularly in the knowledge economy, it is imperative to adapt to these developments and work at developing or to develop new laws accordingly. The President of the Republic also discussed the new Code of Criminal Procedure, which he said will make the judiciary more efficient by guaranteeing legal certainty in line with the requirements of the fight against crime. President Tebboune highlighted the importance of free economy, stressing that it will pave the way for an economy that generates wealth and jobs, highlighting that the economic sector is 85% free, but its funding is public, which requires the interference of the judge and security services in every process, but as long as the money is state money, it has to be monitored. He added that though it is challenging to update this process, the government is making an effort to find a way.
نقطة لازم نحاول بقدر الاستطاعة باش نتجاوزها في إطار إنشاء اقتصاد حر، اقتصاد مدير للثروة ولمناصب الشغل لأبنائنا المتخرجين وغيرهم. إذن الشيء اللي نأسف عليه هو أن القطاع الاقتصادي حر بنسبة 85% فما أكثر ربما، ولكن التمويل عمومي، وهذا اللي يخلي القاضي ومصالح الأمن دائما تتدخل في كل عملية ولو في قطاع حر، ولكن ما دام المال مال الدولة لازم الرقابة نتاعو. إذا لازم نصيب صيغ اللي تخلي الأمور التجارية تبقى تجارية والجنح والجنايات تبقى جنح وجنايات. صعب يعني تحديد أمور بينهما، ولكن لازم نسعى إلى اجتهاد، لازم نكثف هذه المحاكم هذه.
President Tebboune said Algeria has a population of about 15 million, while some laws were adopted when the population was 16 million, which makes them outdated. So the country is trying to make decisions for direct payment, for example, to facilitate the legal procedure.
الحمد لله ربي يصون هذه البلاد وولادها وبناتها. رانا في مثل ما قلت قرابة 50 مليون نسمة، يعني بعض القوانين تاعنا خديناها من كنا 16 مليون 17 مليون. أمور اليوم لو ما نسرعش في القضاء تتراكم علينا الأمور وتعطي نظرة أخرى على الدولة الجزائرية وعلى القضاة وحاشاهم أبعادهم على هذه التصرفات. إذن نحاول كيفاش ناخذ قرارات تاع الدفع مباشر في خطأ في قانون المرور ولا في كذا ولا فذا يدفع فورا، وباش يدفع فورا لازم رجال الدرك والشرطة يكون عندهم وسائل الدفع الإلكتروني.
The President of the Republic, President of the High Council of the Judiciary, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, then officially announced the launch of the judicial year 2025 and 2026.
أعدكم في النهاية أني سأفرج عن القانون الأساسي للقضاة قبل نهاية السنة، وأعلن رسميا عن افتتاح السنة القضائية 2025-2026. وفقكم الله ووفقنا وإياكم.
For the President of the Republic, the opening of the judicial year is an opportunity to take stock of the achievements made by the judicial system thanks to the reforms undertaken to ensure an independent, honest and efficient justice system based on the rule of law and committed to building trust. The Minister of Justice and Keeper of the Seals, Mr. Lutfi Boujemha, has affirmed that the process of strengthening the rule of law is inspired by the program of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, which is being implemented in various fields. In an address made at the opening of the new judicial year, presided over by the President of the Republic, Mr. Boujemha expressed that the judiciary's pride in seeing the head of state, who also chairs the High Council of the Judiciary, led the ceremony. He praised efforts to strengthen the judiciary's position, credibility and independence, enabling it to fully carry out its role in line with the President's instructions. The Minister also noted that his department is implementing the President's instructions to achieve digital transformation, stressing that the justice sector, which has made tangible progress, continues to preserve its achievements and continue to move forward. For his part, the first President of the Supreme Court, Mr. Tahar Mamouni, thanked the President of the Republic for his support to the justice sector, emphasizing that a credible judiciary relies on knowledge, training and digitalization, key elements of the state's strategic objectives. Prime Minister Mr. Sifir Riyeb has held a telephone conversation with the President of the Council of Ministers of Egypt, Mr. Mustafa Mabdbouli. Mr. Charfi reports.
The discussions focused on following up the results of the telephone conversation held between the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, and his brother, the President of Egypt, Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, on October 8th, which also made it possible to review the state of the historical relations of solidarity and cooperation uniting the two countries. On the occasion, the Egyptian Prime Minister emphasized the depth of the ties existing between Algeria and Egypt, praising the esteem and respect that Algeria enjoys from the Egyptian leadership, government and people, and stressing the importance of joint action to develop bilateral cooperation in various fields. For his part, Prime Minister Riyeb renewed his congratulations to his Egyptian counterpart on October 6th victories, reaffirming the importance of strengthening bilateral cooperation in line with the historical solidarity existing between both nations. He also stressed the need to prepare well for the 9th session of the Egyptian-Algerian High Joint Commission, a key step toward boosting economic partnership and expanding cooperation across several sectors.
In its October 2025 editorial, Al Jaish magazine has highlighted the full commitment of the People's National Army to defending Algeria's security, stability and sovereignty. Musar Harfi has more details in this report.
Heir to the glorious November Revolution, the People's National Army remains faithful to the message of the martyrs and the oath of freedom and independence. The army is pursuing a constant process of modernization, integrating new technologies and artificial intelligence. It is aligned with a comprehensive and rational defense strategy, adapted to the security and technological challenges of the moment. The President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, Abdelmajid Tebboune, as well as Army General Said Chengriha, have praised the readiness and professionalism of the army. The People's National Army remains a fundamental pillar of the nation, guaranteeing its future and stability and embodying loyalty to the oath of the martyrs.
The National Human Rights Council has organized here in Algiers a training session on the role of national human rights institutions in monitoring and documenting human rights in collaboration with the Regional Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights for the Middle East and North Africa. On the occasion, the Council's chairman, Mr. Abdelmajid Zaharani, has said that the session was part of the National Action Plan under the 2023 to 2027 cooperation program between the Algerian government and the United Nations system, noting that the National Human Rights Council focuses on two key aspects, including training sessions and creating a network of women mediators to enhance women's roles in conflict prevention and resolution.
Le Conseil national s'est chargé de...
The National Council has taken charge of several points to contribute to their implementation within the framework of this cooperation program. Among these points is training. Today, we have received experts on all issues related to human rights, how to prepare a report, how to conduct discussions, how to carry out an investigation, etc., investigations, and so on. A second point is the United Nations Resolution 1325, which concerns the involvement of women in conflict resolution, and the United Nations has noted that the involvement of women produces better results compared to that of men. Women are more successful in negotiations during conflicts. All this comes at a time when the United Nations is celebrating its 80th anniversary, Algeria is celebrating Algeria Diplomacy Day, and Palestine is witnessing a new day. The war in Palestine has come to an end, and we are now beginning to negotiate the building up of the state of Palestine.
La construction de l'État de Palestine.
In the same context, the United Nations resident coordinator in Algeria, Savina Claudia Mansari, praised the significant commitments of the Algerian authorities in the areas of justice, solidarity, equality and human dignity. Interim Minister Mr. Said Sayyoud has held talks in South Africa with the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and Head of the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, Mr. Kamel Kishori. During the meeting held as part of the G20 Working Group on Disaster Risk Reduction, Mr. Sayyoud examined Algeria's efforts in disaster prevention and management, highlighting the revision of the legal framework, which has made it possible to integrate mechanisms adapted to new challenges inspired by the Sendai framework. He also discussed ongoing efforts to reduce seismic risks, in addition to the importance attached by Algeria to improving response capabilities, while highlighting Algeria's permanent availability to provide assistance and support in case of disasters. The Algerian experience was praised by Mr. Kishori, who stressed that it could be shared during the proceedings of this meeting, notably in terms of prevention, investment in risk reduction, and care for victims during disasters. And at the Fourth Committee of the United Nations General Assembly in charge of special political and decolonization, representatives of the Council of the Nations, members of the Joint Parliamentary Delegation from both Houses of Parliament participating have reiterated the need to allow the Sahrawi people to exercise their right or their inalienable right to self-determination, as Shabakar reports.
The chairman of the Legal and Administrative Affairs Committee of the Council of the Nation, Mr. Mohamed Rabah, reiterated the right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination in accordance with international law and the United Nations resolutions, denouncing the systematic plundering of the natural resources of Western Sahara within the context of ongoing repression, arbitrary trials, media censorship, and the banning of international organizations from accessing the territory. He stressed that what the Moroccan occupation calls development is in reality nothing more than a continuation of colonial rhetoric, while thousands of Sahrawis have been living in camps for more than 50 years, calling for the immediate cessation of the illegal plundering of resources, the release of political prisoners, and full and complete guarantees of the rights of the Sahrawi people. A member of the Council of the Nation, Mr. Haj Belghouati, for his part, affirmed that Western Sahara was the last colony in Africa and has never been part of Morocco, denouncing the serious violations, the systematic plundering of the resources of the Sahrawi people, and Morocco's attempts to falsify reality and buy support. He reaffirmed Algeria's constant position in favor of liberation movements and the right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination. Senator Rashid Laayeb, for his part, expressed concern about the continuing suffering of the Sahrawi people under Moroccan colonial rule, reaffirming that Western Sahara belongs to the Sahrawi people and that this truth is established both historically and legally.
The collective of Sahrawi human rights defenders in Western Sahara, Kodessa, has condemned the holding of a French-Moroccan economic forum in the occupied Dakhla, organized jointly by the Movement of French Enterprises, MEDEF, and the General Confederation of Moroccan Enterprises, as Abikar reports.
The occupied Dakhla section of Kodessa described the initiative as a flagrant provocation and a clear violation of international law, showing total disregard for the rulings of the Court of Justice of the European Union. The collective stressed that any economic or commercial activity carried out in occupied Western Sahara without consent of its legitimate and sole representative, the Polisario Front, constitutes a serious violation of international law and the decisions of the Court of Justice of the European Union, which has repeatedly stated that the Moroccan occupying power has no sovereignty over the territory and that any investment or exploitation of its resources without the consent of the Sahrawi people is null and void. The initiative is part of coordinated French-Moroccan escalation aimed at imposing a colonial fait accompli in the territory, ignoring the inalienable rights of the Sahrawi people to freedom, self-determination and independence.
Moving into the situation in the Middle East, schools of Palestinian prisoners have been released as part of the first stage of the peace plan aimed at ending the Israeli attacks on Gaza ahead of the peace summit held today in Egypt. According to the news agency Wafa, 83 prisoners sentenced to life imprisonment have been released in return for the handing over of hostages to the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC. The ICRC affirmed it received the last 20 hostages who were released today under the ceasefire agreement provided for by the peace plan. 250 Palestinian prisoners are to be released. The first stage of the peace plan, agreed on by the Palestinian Hamas movement and the Israeli occupying authorities, allows for an end to Israel's acts of aggression against Gaza, the Israeli troop withdrawal, and for an access to humanitarian aid. In this connection, UNRWA once again called on the Israeli occupying authorities to allow its workers carry out their mission in the Gaza Strip and allow the funneling of humanitarian aid. In a message published on social networks, the UN agency recalled that UNRWA could provide a vital aid at a needed scale, arguing that it relies on the network as well as the experience and trust of the international community. The UNRWA's call came as world leaders, including US President Trump, are gathering today in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, to address the implementation of the peace plan for Gaza. The summit meeting, chaired by the US and Egyptian presidents, brings together 20 countries to discuss the second phase of the peace plan that focuses on the future of the devastated Gaza. That's it for today's news bulletin. Stay tuned on Radio Algeria International.
Hello and welcome to this new edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine. We are in the month of October, which is the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, a time to create awareness, honor the millions of lives affected by breast cancer, and reaffirm the global commitment to equitable access to care and improved survival for all. This year's theme is entitled, Every Story is Unique, Every Journey Matters. Why is the choice of this theme? Every breast cancer diagnosis is personal. Behind every diagnosis is a story of courage, resilience, and hope. This theme reminds us that breast cancer touches the lives of women and their families around the world differently, and that every journey deserves compassion, dignity, and support. This year's theme recognizes the diversity of experiences and reinforces the need for compassionate, timely, and quality care for all, regardless of geography, income, or background. Breast cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer among women worldwide. In 2022, approximately 2.3 million women were diagnosed and another 670,000 died from the disease. These are not just numbers, but mothers, sisters, daughters, and friends that deserve hope and dignity. While the 5-year survival rates in high-income countries exceeds 90%, the figures drop to 66% in India and 40% in South Africa. These disparities are driven by unequal access to early detection, timely diagnosis, and effective treatment. If the current trend continues, the incidence and mortality are projected to rise by 40% by 2050, hence the need for urgent and coordinated action. Indeed, where a woman lives should not determine whether she survives. Established in 2021, the WHO Global Breast Cancer Initiative, GBCI, together with partners, is working with countries to reduce breast cancer mortality by strengthening health systems. The GBCI's strategic approach, the 60-60-80 targets. We have the tools to prevent, diagnose and treat breast cancer. The GBCI advises countries to implement evidence-based strategies across 3 pillars. Pillar 1, health promotion and early detection empower individuals and communities to recognize symptoms and seek care early. Target 60% of invasive breast cancers are diagnosed at stage 1 or 2. Pillar 2, timely diagnosis ensure diagnostic services are accessible and efficient. Target patients receiving a diagnosis within 60 days of initial presentation. Comprehensive treatment deliver equitable, uninterrupted, comprehensive care for all patients. Target 80% of patients complete their recommended treatment. The overarching goals of Breast Cancer Awareness Month 2025 are to increase awareness and promote behavior change for early detection of breast cancer, advocate for improved access to care, and honor persons with lived experience. The objectives are to highlight the importance of health promotion, early detection and timely diagnosis linked to comprehensive treatment, to foster multi-sectoral partnerships by engaging stakeholders to co-create and amplify impact, to promote equitable access to quality care through adoption and implementation of the GBCI targets. October 2025 highlights Global Storytelling Campaign. Whether you are a policymaker, health worker, partner, survivor, or advocate, you are invited to submit short videos, posts, or podcasts showcasing your experience and how you are commemorating Breast Cancer Awareness Month and Advocacy Toolkit. The third Global Breast Cancer Initiative Informal Partners Meeting on October 8 will convene a partners meeting to deliberate on key priority areas and launch a training manual intended to build foundational knowledge, skills, and capacity for GBCI implementation. It's worth noting that breast cancer is the most common cancer in women and the second most common cancer to cause death in women after lung cancer. Breast cancer is the abnormal growth of the cells lining the breast lobules or ducts. These cells grow uncontrollably and have the potential to spread to other parts of the body. Some people have no symptoms and the cancer is found during a screening mammogram or physical examination by a doctor. Some factors that increase the risk of breast cancer include increasing age, family history, inheritance of mutations in the genes, exposure to female hormones, natural and administered, starting your period before the age of 12, a previous breast cancer diagnosis, and a past history of certain non-cancerous breast conditions. Lifestyle factors that can also slightly increase the risk of breast cancer in men and women include being overweight, not enough physical activity, and drinking alcohol. There is also an association with some benign breast disease and past exposure to radiation. Breast cancer is diagnosed through physical examination. If you notice any breast changes or a mammogram shows something suspicious, your doctor will perform a physical examination. A mammogram is a low-dose X-ray that can find changes that are too small to be felt during a physical examination. Ultrasound. If a mammogram picks up breast changes, you may have an ultrasound. This is a painless scan using sound waves to make a picture of your breast. And if breast cancer is suspected, a doctor removes some of the breast tissue for examination by a pathologist under a microscope, and this is called biopsy. Treatment for breast cancer. Treatment depends on the extent of the cancer. Staging involves ascertaining the size of the breast cancer and whether it has spread to the draining lymph nodes under the arm. Surgery. For localized breast cancer, the most extensive surgical option is to remove the breast and lymph nodes under the arm. When part of the breast is removed, it is referred to as a breast conserving surgery or a lumpectomy. Radiotherapy is generally recommended after breast conserving surgery. Women aged 40 and beyond are invited to perform a medical check or a mammography every 2 years, knowing that there is no proven method of preventing breast cancer. However, the risk of breast cancer can be reduced by lowering alcohol consumption and maintaining a healthy weight and lifestyle. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine. Don't forget to join us next week for a fresh edition and a fresh topic. Goodbye.
Welcome to your weekly program, Destination Algeria. I'm Jamal Semeni. There are a number of great destinations in Algeria just waiting to be discovered. A curious of mixtures of cultures and influences, Algeria has something interesting to see in just about every city. The country is also the first largest on the African continent, so you can be sure that there are plenty of towns and cities to visit. Let's visit Algeria's fascinating destinations, you and I, together. The ancient city of Tebessa is the capital city of the Algerian province of the same name, as it is situated about 20 kilometers from the Tunisian border. According to Algeria.com website, the city is famous for the manufacture of traditional Algerian carpets. Tebessa has a long and diverse history with many interesting sites for visitors to explore. Tebessa started off as a town of Numidia, an ancient North African Berber kingdom. In the 7th century before Christ, it became an outpost of Carthage, and by 146 CE, it had become part of the Roman Empire, becoming known by the name of Theveste. The flourishing city, with an estimated 30,000 inhabitants, was given the designation of Colonia during the rule of Roman Emperor Trajan. Under the Ottoman Empire, which reached the zenith of its power in the 16th and 17th century, Theveste was home to